This is the Hollywood Gothique Halloween Horror Podcast, brought to you by HollywoodGothique.com, the online guide to fantasy films, mystery movies, Halloween horror, and sci-fi cinema events in Los Angeles. When night falls on the Pacific, the land of sunshine and surf transforms into a shadowy city of angels, teeming with sinister and surreal forms of entertainment. Interested in exploring this labyrinthine landscape of nighttime terrors? Then come along with us, if you dare. This is Steve Biodrowski from Hollywood Gothique, and today I am talking to Zombie Joe of Zombie Joe's Underground Theater in North Hollywood. They are about to launch their third annual Urban Death Tour of Terror for Halloween. It starts on October 2nd. And we're going to talk a little bit today about how this came into being, what its origins were, where it came from, and how it's different from other Halloween attractions you might encounter in Los Angeles. So first, welcome, Zombie Joe. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Great. Okay, so first thing I want to get across to people is, although this show is in its third year, or will be in its third year when it starts, it's not as if you guys are really neophytes at this, because Zombie Joe's Underground Theater has been around for 20-some years, 23 years, and the Urban Death theater presentation, that's the core of your Halloween show, has actually been around 10 years. It just wasn't specifically Halloween until now. So let's talk a little bit about what you were doing before you got into Halloween. What was the brief for the Zombie Joe's Underground Theater? What were you up to?
Well, for Halloween, before the Tour of Terror, for a couple Halloweens there, we were running Urban Death during the Halloween month, a full show, but we've also done some other plays of our own, like Not With Monsters from Adam Newbauer, our general manager, we were doing some Halloween-themed productions. We even did a funeral, a mock funeral for Halloween once, where we buried one of our own, and we had an open casket, a viewing. People came dressed in black and brought flowers, and we ran it like a Jewish funeral. We've done stuff like that, like really morbid reality kind of shows. What happened, I guess, a few years ago was we crossed over into the amazing haunt world, and as Hollywood Gothique has been a huge part of spearheading like LA being the greatest haunt city in the world, literally now. We kind of jumped on that. We kind of jumped on the coattails of that, and so it's, for any small theater, it's very difficult to just keep everything moving, on a day-to-day basis. So Urban Death has really, for us, spearheaded us into that haunt crossover, and it's just been great. So we have people that a lot of our wonderful audiences that come out, they've never even seen a play before. I mean, we'll get a huge demographic of people that have never even seen a show, and they're adults, and they've never seen a play, and they'll be coming to our theater to see Urban Death. So that's been a really nice thing.
And it's interesting that this might be the first theatrical experience for some of your viewers, because what you're doing is not, how shall we say, conventional theater. Part of what's interesting about Urban Death is it's a series of vignettes. It's not really connected by a plot. It's as if you looked at a bunch of horror movies, plays, stories, whatever, and said, all that connective tissue, all that narrative stuff is really not necessary. Let's just put all the good stuff together. And I think you call what you do theater of cruelty, or at least that's kind of some of the inspiration for what you're doing. So maybe convey to people, what is the Urban Death stage show like? Because it could be a real, how shall I say, slap in the face if you're not quite ready for it, or,
Basically we lock you inside a small black room and torture you, pretty much. But we call the format, it's a French tableau style of Grand Guignol, a hybrid, a West Coast French-style tableau of Grand Guignol Theater. So basically you're catching, you might catch in one evening for a classic urban death format would be 40 pieces with blackouts in between of scenes of horror and distress and murder and monsters, basically partnering with your psyche. The pieces range from 10 seconds to a minute and a half tops. And there's dance in there as well. And basically we're just partnering just the way, the bard Shakespeare would partner with the imaginations of the people at the Globe. We're also in our little black box theater, we're partnering with your late night imagination to show you, just literally suggest extreme moments of terror that you can take with you, and you can mull on it at when you go home, kind of thing. So whereas a normal play, for example, if you go see a play that's 2 acts, or they'll literally be like cracking you over the head with a baseball bat with their themes and their attitudes and their opinions. So for us, we know that at times short, people are distracted, and we want to hit fast and hit hard and get out, and that's basically, we get out. You're always welcome to stick around, but, we don't want to, so the Tour of Terror is even a more abridged version of that, or a sampling of that, but you're bound to, the thing with the Halloween, our event for Halloween, you're catching, it's a haunt, and you're catching a lot more, a lot quicker. So we kind of give it all to you in about a half an hour. We'll give you a lot of stimulus in a half an hour. So to take the place of that, of that haunt experience that you're looking for. So, so for Urban Death, when people come out for our classic show, they'll be expecting more of a sit-down play kind of situation. But we understand the expectations around Halloween. People are out partying, looking for fun stuff to do in the greatest haunt city of them all, in Los Angeles. And so we want to give you a great experience quickly, and so you can be on your way to the next haunt.
Okay, so you mentioned Urban Death and you mentioned the Halloween version, and to clarify for people who aren't paying close enough attention, there's Urban Death, which goes year-round, and it runs about an hour, I guess, on stage. Urban Death Tour of Terror is the Halloween version. It's a shorter experience in terms of being in the theater, half hour, but then there's an additional element you've added, which is your variation on the walk-through maze, which, is sort of almost an obligatory thing for a Halloween attraction. So let's talk about what they're going to get, what the Halloween fans are going to get when they go to the Tour of Terror that you don't get at Urban Death.
It's almost like producing two variants of Urban Death. So starting usually in March or April, we'll run our standard, our classic format of sit-down hour-long show, 40 to 45 pieces. And then for Halloween, we've been doing the walk-through maze combined with about probably about a 15-minute show, which the last couple of years it's been standing and experiencing, and then back through a different maze on the way back. So that's been the format, and it's all been in the same space at 4850 Lankershim. So every year we look at ways to improve and really up the ante for what we're doing, because our audiences are becoming immune to what we're doing. Like the people that have been coming, our audiences that have been coming every year and to every Urban Death show, we really want to give them a great experience, as well as the newcomers that it's their first time experiencing it. So what to expect? I think it's going to be scary, and this year is going to have an extra dose of weird and fun. We have an amazing cast this year. A lot of veterans, that have been doing urban death with us for years that that you've met, and then also we have some amazing new people in the cast as well. And Gianna Weimer and I, again, are directing the show. There was a time when she was directing Urban Death, and then I would direct Urban Death, and then, but the last several Urban Deaths we've been directing together, and she and I are the only two directors and co-creators of Urban Death together. We've been literally doing them together, and it's been a lot of fun for us, and it's a big challenge. We don't want to disappoint, and we know that the show it's unbelievable that the show's been growing. I mean, we're so grateful that people have been coming out to see it, and the last thing we want to do is rest on our laurels and say, oh, we've got something here now that people will come to. It feels like we're giving birth every time we put on a show. It's just it gets increasingly more challenging to turn out something special and memorable, and we don't ever rest on our laurels and think, oh, we got this, because what we always feel like we don't. Like we have to really we have to constantly earn our seat as haunters and as artists, and do something bigger and better every time.
Absolutely. And one interesting aspect of the tour part of the Tour of Terror, the maze, let's say, is you let people in only one or two at a time, so it's a very personal experience, and also you give them a flashlight with an extremely limited amount of light coming out, barely more than a pinpoint. So the people have a certain choice involved in exactly how much they see. It's almost like closing your eyes. It's like you point the flashlight at something scary, you're like, whoops, no, don't want to see any more of that. Or some people do, So that's interesting. How has that worked in terms of the cast? Because I'm thinking they're in the dark, lights hitting them in the face, and some people are probably looking closer, and other people are running away. So they must never know exactly what kind of interaction they're going to get from the people walking through.
Exactly. Your guess is as good as ours on that. It just seems to sort of work, and we never touch them, and they don't touch us, and there's a lot of there's a lot of trust involved. Just like that's also where the theater prowess comes in. Like you won't sit there and watch a play, and when you watch a show, even if you're in the first row, you won't touch the actors. So going through the flashlight, you're almost like a peeping Tom. You're like an adventurer, and you're choosing your own journey. You're customizing your own journey with what you choose to look at in the dark. It's definitely an odd. I don't know if it's quite a phenomena for us, but it's something that we kind of stumbled onto that we've been enhancing every time. The whole concept of walking through with a self-guided maze with a flashlight, that they will almost discover their own great experiences that come through, and that they'll find it scary, and a lot of the fear is manifested through their own experience.
And I wanted to follow up on this thing you mentioned, which is you don't touch people. It's becoming not common yet, but more often we're seeing so-called extreme haunts in which they do more or less physically abuse the customers. I'm not sure why people pay for that. There's other places you can go to pay for that. You don't have to wait for Halloween. But there is, I think, definitely a connection that's made in urban death. It's kind of like, if I were going to find a way to say it, you're abusing them spiritually. Does that make any sense?
Oh wow, really? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you're not touching them, you're not strangling them, or making them do disgusting things, but you're definitely trying to get inside their heads and make them feel creeped out.
Absolutely. I guess that's also something to understand, like how powerful your imagination can be, or what your mind is telling you. And that's something we really never thought about until the show started like seeing some success, and just from what people told us, what they experienced, what you told us of what you had experienced. But yeah, a normal haunt, when you would walk through, and even the larger attractions at Universal, at Knott's, you have performers in your face, your personal space, even like Blumhouse, I had water poured on me. I had people like hitting me in the back. I don't think they meant to hurt us or anything, but we really try to keep that tiny bit of distance so you're never touched. And I know, and that just comes from, we don't like to be touched. I don't like to go through a haunt and be touched. So I wouldn't expect our audiences to endure that from us either. So we get as tight as we can. And also, versus us coming up to you, it's quite the opposite with Urban Death. Like, we're expecting you to come up to us with the flashlight and examine what we're doing, take a look and purvey what we're actually doing. So it's sort of an opposite philosophy than your normal horror style haunt, I think.
I wanted to explore this other idea. It's kind of hinted by something you'd said before about, you didn't quite know what you had until you started getting reactions from people. Interesting thing about Urban Death Tour of Terror, which separates it from a lot of haunts, it's becoming more and more popular for haunts to have backstories. You see it on their website. Here's why the place is haunted. And also more popular to tell you that story when you get to the haunt. Let's have actors. Let's have some dialogue. None of that happens at Tour of Terror. What we see is almost devoid of context. You see something happening, who these people are, how they came into that situation, we don't know. And it really forces the audience, or I shouldn't say the audience, it forces each individual member of the audience to supply that context, which is kind of what makes it fascinating. So I imagine, in a sense, although everybody's watching the same play, and I know it might be hard for you to say anything about this, I imagine everybody's having a completely different experience. So have you heard any reactions from people coming out, like, this is what I thought it meant when they did this scene, and someone else had a completely 180-degree separate interpretation of the same vignette?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's we try to, on top of getting to know each of our audience members, like even on a personal basis, because we consider our audience like family with us, we do try to find out what they felt about how they viewed the experience, and some of that's kind of personal too. But we do try to ask them, and the idea of a streaming of a backstory seems to be also like a great way to go for even for special ops infected for at Knott's. But there's a whole story, and it's a great popular show. But for us, it's almost as if you're walking down the street and you're viewing several different scenarios going on as you're walking down the street. It would be sort of the same for us. And as far as the individual experiences, yeah, they're varied and they're different, and there's some things that people don't, things that we take for granted, like clowns. If we have a clown that opens up our show, literally we'll have people just walk around, do a 180 and say thank you and walk out. They won't even sit through it, so that's something that would affect them that we don't even think twice about. They don't like clowns. And then there's some things that people really love. Also, people have been getting, I guess, there's been some offense, we did recently a Third Reich piece, which is very scary. We find stormtroopers, Nazi stormtroopers, scary, and Nazi-themed stuff very frightening. So we've been partnering with that and doing a little bit of historical pieces as well, and that's been both alluring and off-putting to people. in very, very interesting. Like, it seems like we kind of touch on things in them that are very personal and deep. So yeah, everyone's had a different reaction, and we don't want people ever to feel offended to where they don't want to return, or that they're feeling like we were drawing offense to them. But at the same time, we're not afraid to do anything. We don't ever want to. For us, it's all entertainment. We have no viewpoint. We have no political viewpoints. We have no opinions on anything as a theater company. Everything is fair game. We cross all lines, and it's all entertainment for us, and it's all there for the taking, and it's all there for us to comment on in an artistic way. We have no. I know theater's often used for political agendas or social agendas, but for us, it's all just entertainment, and it's all fair game.
You'd mentioned the grueling schedule, how many plays you put on in the theater each year, and I'm thinking this Halloween has got to be particularly grueling because Urban Death isn't going to be the only thing running. You're going to have Attack of the Rotting Corpses on Sundays, while Urban Death is doing Fridays and Saturdays pretty much throughout October. Are you going to sleep at all during that month?
We're very fortunate to have a really passionate company of directors. Denise Devon is our lead director, and she's also works tirelessly to keep everything in its place. Our general manager, Adam Neubauer, Sebastian Munoz, Vanessa Kate, Josh T. Ryan, who's a founding member. We're all very passionate, and Jana and I, she's like my sister in crime. I think it really boils down to, giving yourself meaning in this life. The good news is I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be at 4850 putting on shows, and the bad news is I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be doing, these shows. So I feel like in a lot of ways, Steve, not to be dramatic, I feel like I don't have a whole lot of choice. It's grueling, and it's definitely a path to exhaustion, and there's not a whole bunch of time for much else between the teaching and doing these shows. But you know what? A life in the theater is a life worth living, and I wouldn't want to spend it any other way. I mean, just the fact that you and I are talking together right now, it's like a dream come true. Like I don't know how it can get any better. So, and we do that. The tickets are cheap. Tickets are $13. It just barely pays for the whole event. We're not out there to profiteer on our public. We really want to just do a community event that gets as many people involved as possible. Because we've got people that fly in from all over the world, and so like for a half an hour show, they'll come from all over the country, and they'll make a whole trip out of it. They'll go to a hotel and they'll see Universal. They'll come to our place. The last thing we want to do is give some lame ass show, and we give them something that's underwhelming. We're killing some part of this haunt city that's taken all this time and energy to build up. So we see that responsibility as well, that we're like a tiny part of the whole haunt movement.
Okay, I think we're running out of time here, so I want to wrap up just to remind people. 2 productions this Halloween at Zombie Joe's Underground Theater. Attack of the Rotting Corpses, although they're rotting corpses, actually gets the jump on Urban Death. That's going to start on September 27th. It runs Sundays through November 1st at 7:30. Urban Death starts on October 2. There are 5 performances nightly, starting at 8 each hour. For people who only know you through the Halloween show, Urban Death Tour of Terror, give us a 30-second pitch. What are they going to get out of Attack of Rotting Corpses that they're not going to get from Urban Death?
Well, they're going to get a fun sort of comedy thriller story of a zombie meltdown at 50 Peachtree Condominium. It's got a little bit of Raimi in there, and it's got a little bit of it's got a little bit of Night of the Living Dead, and it's sort of a fun, gregarious, over the top, bloody, disgusting comedy thriller. We have like actors playing dogs, like real dogs, rabid dogs, and there's monsters, and there's a lot of piss and vinegar in the show. There's also some really sexy stuff and some real mental breakdowns going on in the show too. So it's a blast. On top of it, what makes it really special is Josh T. Ryan, one of our company's founders, is not only directing this golden edition of Attack of the Rising Corpses of my script, but he's also in the play as well. He's one of the main characters. So he's performing it. He's really taking this thing on like a champ. He's kind of like a mini star, a sort of local celebrity in himself. So whenever he performs in a show, it's sort of a big event.
Cool. And so that's Zombie Joe's Underground Theater. That's at 4850 Lancashire Boulevard in North Hollywood. If you want information, you can go to zombiejoes.com. That's all one word, no apostrophes or anything like that. You can find information about purchasing tickets and show times and so forth. And I want to thank Zombie Joe for taking time out from what must be a very busy schedule to talk about all this.
Oh, Steve, seriously, thank you so much. I mean, this has been the best. Thank you, sir. Rock and roll. Woohoo!
For more information on fantasy films, mystery movies, Halloween horror, and sci-fi cinema events in Los Angeles, visit HollywoodGothique.com. This is Steve Biodrowski, signing off. The night grows cold, the children sleep, counting herds of zombie sheep. Sacks of candy haunt their dreams, delicious fruit of Halloween. This podcast is copyright 2015, Steve Biodrowski. All music composed by Steve Biodrowski, performed by Gothique, all rights reserved, no unauthorized duplication without permission.